Greetings, my name is Melinda Mitchell. I am the founder, CEO, and head curator for the Museum of Mortality. If you'd like to learn more about the museum, please visit our website at www.museumofmortality.com. You will also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and now on YouTube. I want to talk a little bit today about uranium and radium, specifically uranium glass and radium dials. As my job with being the head curator for the Museum of Mortality, I need to do a lot of research and a lot of learning. And I'm also connected to a lot of different groups so I can glean information off of people who are, in essence, experts on what they deal with. Now, I know that there is a lot of misconceptions out there and there's a lot of misinformation as well. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about today is specifically on uranium glass and radium dials. Now, uranium glass was primarily considered depression glass, and depression glass comes in a multitude of different colors. Depression glass came from the Depression era where glass makers were wanting to be able to do something inexpensively so that way people could decorate their tables with beautiful glass pieces that cost very little. And in order to achieve a bright or pretty green color, they used uranium. Now, in making the glass, they would use trace amounts, sometimes all the way up to 25% of the glass is uranium. Most of the time it was between trace amounts and only 2%. Now, a lot of people go, oh, but isn't that radioactive? It is. Uranium is radioactive. It is found on the periodic chart as U-92. Now, it has several different types of isotopes within it, from U-238, U-234, and U-235. The uranium that is used in the glass making is uranium oxide. Uranium oxide itself has very little potency as far as the radiation that's concerned. Primarily, it gives off alpha and gamma rays. Now, I can show you some of the green pieces that I have. It comes anywhere from a very light mint to a brilliant green. One of the ways for people to find out if they truly have uranium glass is through the use of UV light. UV light in the glass makes it stand out and glow. Now, this piece here, the mint piece, you can see it still glows a particular green, and I will add photos so that way you can see it. But the bright green still has the same tone. Now, a lot of people talk about the radiation levels of uranium glass, and they wonder if having lots of glass that is radioactive in one space is detrimental to your health. Now, I also carry with me, when I go out hunting for artifacts for the museum, a small Geiger counter. Now, this pocket Geiger counter will tell you how many parts per minute is being released. The uranium glass with the alpha and gamma rays releases anywhere from 0 all the way up to over 2,000 counts per minute, or CPM. Now, these are the unstable isotopes that are releasing different parts of the atoms in order to become more stable. Depending upon what type you're dealing with, will tell you what type of different radiation rays you are dealing with. You've got alpha, beta, and gamma, ultraviolet, and all sorts of things. If you just look at the sun and the sun rays that we get here on Earth, the radiation is full spectrum. Now, with uranium glass, because of the fact that it was from a trace amount all the way up to 25%, it still only produces a low level of counts per minute. Acceptable background level for counts per minute is anywhere between 0 and 50. And it doesn't matter if you have one piece of uranium glass or multiples. It does not stack up very much on top of each other. Most of the time, your counts per minute are going to be anywhere from 0 to about 25 with any type of uranium glass. Now, yes, I know that there is other glass out there like cadmium glass, which is also radioactive. I cannot really go into that particular at the point because I do not have any cadmium glass. But the misconceptions with uranium glass, people constantly are asking, well, isn't it harmful to you having all that radiation in your house? Some other people brought up different points about you get more radiation when you step outside and are blasted by the sun or standing near a microwave. Well, I'll show you this. This is my microwave set at 6 minutes. I let it count down some so it could get an accurate count per minute. This is a picture of my Geiger counter after it had been sitting out in the sun for 5 minutes. This way it can give you kind of an accurate guess as to how much radiation the sun actually puts out. Over an extended period of time, it does build up within the body and within the system, but very little really will affect you in small doses. It's the same with having uranium glass around you at all points in time. Some people have even asked, well, what if I break the glass? Does it release more radiation? No. The uranium that is used is a solid. If you were to break the glass, all you're doing is breaking apart a solid. You're not releasing any type of gas that might be trapped in the glass itself. The radiation particles, the uranium oxide, actually gets locked into this crystalline structural form of glass. The only way that uranium glass is going to affect you is if you were to grind this up, turn it into powder, and consume large quantities of the glass. And then you know it's not the uranium in here that's actually going to harm you. It's the glass itself. Now, in talking with different people within the different groups, a lot of people end up getting uranium and radium confused. They do sound a lot alike, but they are actually a little bit farther apart on the periodic table than what we normally would expect. Radium itself is R88, whereas uranium is U92. But radium itself is about 1 million times more radioactive than uranium, though it was the atomic bomb that used uranium and plutonium because of its nuclear fission properties. Radium itself puts out alpha, beta, and gamma rays. Radium-226 itself has a 1,600-year half-life. That's 1,600 years in order for it to break down to half of what it was in the beginning. So a lot of people in these groups start talking about uranium and radium and how deadly are these because of the stories of like the radium girls and how their bones disintegrated, how they developed weird cancers and tumors, and how it affected their bodies. Now, the radium girls themselves were given the compounds to mix into a paint, to paint on dials. It started off primarily as airplane equipment, so that way they didn't have to use cockpit lights over enemy territories. They could see the dials in the dark, which makes sense. But these girls, the scientists, gave them the powder, not telling them that it had very unhealthy properties. See, radium was considered an energizer. It was good for the system. You had Radiathor they had so many different products, from radiated water to radiated cosmetics, to give you that luminous glow. Now, radium itself, in these powders, the girls were working with it directly, and they were told to dip and lip point their brushes, so they were consuming pure radium. The radium dials that we still have around today, yes, they are very, very radioactive. Some of them put off anywhere from the 200 range all the way up over 2,000. I actually have 3 different clocks for the museum that primarily from the 1920s to the 1940s. I have my little travel clock. Now, the radium that is still on this has been painted around the letters and is also on the dials. Now, this one here actually broke. It's up here floating around. This was a bedside travel clock. You would actually flip it out, roll it up, and you could set your alarm to wake you up. Now, people kept these on the side of their bed. Why? They didn't need batteries or plug in their wind-up. One of the other clocks that I have is also a bedside table clock. Wind-up as well. And then my Big Boy. Now, Big Boy has a lot of different alarm settings to it. Same thing. It is the clock face itself, the numbers that have been painted, as well as the dials. One of the interesting things is, yes, you may not be able to see it at the moment, but these pieces are still highly radioactive. See, radium, like uranium, reacts to UV light, as you can kind of see here. I have a clock like this in my house. How detrimental is it to my health? Primarily, it's not going to be detrimental because you're not really ingesting the radium. That's what would affect you from the inside out. Being around the alpha, beta, and gamma rays, over time, it might, but it would take a very, very long time for it to affect you. The main reason why it affected the radium girls is because of the fact that they were ingesting it in very, very high amounts. The powder itself, the element itself, started to embed itself within the body, radiating outward. Receiving radiation from the outside in is a much different story. Now, these clocks, the 3 that I have, the interesting part is this one, the small square clock, actually puts out the least amount of radioactivity, as you will see in the picture. My big boy, the metal silver one, puts off about the 1800 range. Now this is counts per minute. And the small travel clock, the small brown one, puts off between 18 and 1900 counts per minute. Now, people lived with these clocks next to their bedsides for anywhere between 10, 15, 20, 75 years. And most of them did not have a problem. And a lot of the main reason for that is because they were not ingesting the radiation and having it radiate out, but just receiving it through the skin. So in conclusion, those that have uranium glass, it is not going to affect you in any way. It is such a minute dose of radiation that you actually get more pretty much anywhere else. And it has such a short wavelength that it has a hard time actually being absorbed by the body because the skin blocks most of it. So if you're worried about having a lot of uranium glass in your house, you're still not any more radioactive than before you even collected the glass. You can cook with it, you can eat off of it, you can drink off of it. It is not going to contaminate your food. People who have radium dials still around and in their house, you don't have to be afraid of it either. If you're that afraid, you can put it behind leaded glass. The leaded glass will block most of the alpha and beta rays. Therefore, you're not going to be absorbing the radiation that comes from the radium dials unless you actually happen to break the clock open and lick the radium off the dials or ingest it in some other way. So you can have these objects around your house and they're not going to affect you because the time it would take for it to affect you is a lot longer than what we have on this earth. Thank you very much for listening today. I hope I was able to answer some of your questions. If you have any more questions, please feel free to contact me either through the website or through Facebook or Instagram. Have a wonderful day.